Hey everyone, if you're dealing with either significant sadness on a regular basis or significant anger on a regular basis, then this is going to be a very important video for you. My name's Hicks. I'm a mental health coach. I help people improve their feelings of either depression or anxiety by reducing them by about 75% or more in 90 days using a conditioning-based process to train the brain to think and feel differently. I do what I do because I was once suicidal, and traditional coping mechanisms like therapy, counseling, medication didn't really work well for me, but learning how to train my brain has helped me stay depression-free for over 16 years. And I want you to have the mental health you deserve, because you really do deserve to have it. You just got to learn how to earn it and obtain it. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about extreme sadness or extreme anger. And I guess it doesn't even have to be extreme. It could just be, repetitive sadness or repetitive anger. And those emotions tend to come from one particular common source that not a lot of people realize. And the crux of the source is a very common little mental delusion that we get caught up in from time to time. We all do this from time to time, some people more so than others. And the delusion is what we call the delusion of right and wrong. Okay, so let me qualify this for a second. We as human beings have a very strong relationship to the idea of morals and ethics. And so when we create a belief that certain actions are fundamentally wrong, right? As in immoral, unethical, unacceptable is really the idea there, right? Then we will have a very strong emotional reaction to those particular types of things. So an obvious example would be like physically harming another human being, right? For most of us, the idea of like doing some type of uninitiated physical harm towards someone else. So no one harmed you, but you go up to them and you physically harm them. Almost every person is going to have a very strong belief of that is wrong, right? And if I asked you like, okay, well, why do you feel that that's wrong? You would give me other beliefs that really just kind of exemplify the idea of that is wrong. So you'd say, well, that's not right, or you shouldn't do that, or, it's not okay to harm other people. It would all just be different permutations of it is wrong, it is unacceptable, right? So now with an example like that, that's kind of a well-known cultural thing. I would agree. I think that, you can't really have a fulfilled life if we live in a society where everybody's hitting each other all the time. So I'm certainly not advocating that we change our belief about that particular item. But what I'm trying to impart to you is that we carry over that idea of right and wrong. We almost like overcorrect the whole right and wrong thing, where we apply right and wrong to lots of situations where it's not binary, where it's not, one way is right and one way is wrong, but rather it's pluralistic. So for example, let me see if I can find a good example here. Let's take up the idea of relationships, okay? So some people have a belief that if you are going to, or we'll say parenting is a good example here. So let's say with parenting, right? Some people have a firm belief that if your kid comes to you and they are in emotional pain or emotional, they're crying, they're upset about something, right? Some people have the idea that what is right is you need to give that child unconditional love, unconditional understanding, hold them, kiss them, help them feel better, right? Nurture them back into feeling better. Other people have a different belief. And the belief is that if I coddle you, if I give you attention in this time when you're feeling pain, if I just, anytime you're in pain, come to you and give you what you want, that is not the very loving thing, because long term, you might start to get reinforced for that, and you're going to learn that all I got to do is be upset in order to get what I want. And that's not going to be the compassionate thing. The compassionate thing actually is to not always go and try to immediately kiss the boo-boo, as it were, right? But to sometimes let the child be a little frustrated in the moment so they figure it out on their own, so that you can build independence, okay? Now, I'm not starting a whole conversation about which one is correct, because my whole point is that there are pros and cons to both approaches. And I know this because I work with adult clients who were raised with both of those methods, and I can tell you neither one is necessarily right in all situations, right? Both of those approaches have upsides and downsides to them. And that's exactly my point. So one thing that we commonly do is we get in our head about some things, say, our parents did, and we think to ourselves, well, what my parent did to me was not right, that I was upset and I was crying and they should have came and consoled me, and they didn't. And one thing I'll ask my clients is I'll say, well, do you think that your parent may have had reasons for doing what they did? And very often, once they start to entertain an alternate point of view, they can realize, oh my gosh, yeah, my dad or my mom was just really stressed out and they were doing the best that they could. And it's not that they did anything wrong. It's just that they didn't know what else to do, or they were actually looking out for my best interests. They were doing what they thought would actually help me. And I have had this belief that they did it to hurt me, right? So that's a very common thing. So you can see how we can create emotional blocks for ourselves very often by presuming that other people are doing something inherently wrong, or that their intent especially was not in the right place. Now, sometimes it is the case, right? So sometimes it is the case that somebody's intent was truly to harm us. However, in my experience, probably 99 times out of 100, we are presuming that we know what their intent was without validating it, without hearing it from the horse's mouth. Probably 99 times out of 100. Right? So the biggest thing that impacts our mental health more so is we distort and we say, no, they were wrong. Not they were different. They had a different point of view. They had a different upbringing. They had a different set of values. They had a different set of priorities. They had a different set of needs than I did. Right? We're not paying respect to that, but rather we're just saying, no, they were wrong. Right? And that can be very, very damaging to relationships. Now, the relationship it can be the most damaging to is the relationship we have with ourselves. So if you are presuming that you did something wrong, right? Or even worse, that you as an entire human being, like your identity is like you are a failure, not just you failed, but, oh, I am a failure, right? Not just, oh yeah, I lied in that one moment and I can see it's a mistake, but no, I am a liar. Right? Then it becomes an even more emotionally painful distortion, right? But we can get ourselves angry at ourselves or sad with ourselves when we apply this delusion of right and wrong onto ourselves, okay? So what I just want you to see is that right and wrong is, if you look at like the entire globe, the entire population globally, there is no singular definition of right and wrong. Okay, now I think that I personally, as an individual, my beliefs are that there are some things fundamentally that all human beings should accept are right and wrong. A physical harm would be one of those, but it's a very small list, right, of things that I think objectively we all should agree are right and wrong. What I can appreciate is that there are many, many different ways to raise healthy children. There are many ways to have fulfilling romantic relationships. There are many ways to run a successful company. There are many ways to even run a successful like government or state, right? There are different, because people can have different values. People can have different priorities. And the more we can make space in our life for not just automatically labeling things as right and wrong, but rather being able to appreciate and make space for considering other points of view, the more healthy we tend to make our lives, the more capable of growth we end up becoming, which is a really powerful thing. Because think about it, right? When you're applying this black and white idea to almost everything, it's right or it's wrong. Well, that means that like 50% or more of every person you encounter, every opinion you encounter, every single interaction you have with another human being is going to be wrong. So the more you apply this idea of you're either right or you're wrong, and that's it, the more upset you're going to get, because the more things will trigger you into believing, oh, that's wrong, I can't accept that. It's one of the most common distortions that we make. And so particularly if you're having trouble with anger, it's a big one, because anger comes from this idea that they shouldn't have done that. And it may not be that, they shouldn't have done it. It may just be that what they didn't coincide with your expectations, with your definition of right and wrong, but they were doing what they thought was right. Okay, so anyway, to apply this to your own life, here's what I would recommend. Think about something that you've recently been getting really sad or really angry about. And think, have you been applying this idea of right and wrong maybe a little bit too generously? Like, have you presumed that one person or one action that took place or one event was wrong when maybe it was just something that was outside of your particular rules? So maybe here's what I'll close with. One exercise I do with my clients is I take them through a process where I help them find out what all of their rules are. Excuse me. So a rule is essentially like a should. We all have a list of rules. We all have a list of beliefs about what should or should not happen. So we'll say things like, oh, well, they shouldn't, okay, here's a common example. Think about when you drive, right? You've got certain rules about driving where if somebody doesn't turn on their turn signal, some of you listening to this video, you're like, yeah, I get really angry when somebody doesn't turn on their turn signal. Some of you are like, yeah, I don't turn on my turn signal because who cares? I'm turning or I'm not turning, right? So that's a pure example how two different people could have two different rules, like shoulds for themselves. One person says, no, everyone should use their turn signal and you should do it within 100 feet of the turn. Other people have a belief that says, no, you don't, the turn signal is optional. You shouldn't have to use your turn signal, right? So for the one person, the first person, they're going to feel like that rule is violated whenever the turn signal is not used. And so they're going to be angry in that situation. It's not that inherently one is right or wrong. I mean, I guess one is illegal, right? But, it's really just that particular action violates that person's rules. So we essentially walk through our life where we think that our rules are the rules. And we think that everybody else is violating the rules. Like, what the hell is wrong with them? Don't they know you're not supposed to do that? No, because according to them, it's a different rule. It's a different expectation. And most human beings are not living their life in a way where they're like, I'm doing this unethical thing and I know I'm doing this unethical thing, but I'm going to do it no matter what. Most people are living a life that they find to be ethical based off their own rules, right? So we have to start to be able to appreciate, not always agree, but we have to start to appreciate that other people have different rules and be able to open up a conversation about that, because otherwise you're just going to pigeonhole yourself, getting angry about every interaction you have with people that aren't like you. Your relationships are going to suffer, and you'll probably end up getting mad and upset with yourself too, more often than you need to. So anyway, I'd love to see in the comments, what is something that you have been applying the delusion of right and wrong to that might be causing you some pain and that maybe you need to make a little bit more space for? I'd love to hear that. So if you found this valuable, please go ahead, just engage in the video in some meaningful way, because it helps pay it forward to someone else. It will mean somebody who's struggling with their mental health will be able to see this. And that's a big gift that you can provide somebody else. So I hope this has been helpful. I'll be excited to see you and serve you in my next video. See ya.